Companies are doing mass layoffs while complaining about not being able to find enough employees. Some workers are min-maxing the system by working multiple full-time jobs at the same time, while others need to work hours of unpaid overtime at just one job. This is not to mention that the gig economy is consuming entire sections of the workforce. The 9-to-5 was created by American labor unions in the 1800s and became mainstream over 100 years ago, when jobs looked like this and this. It was revolutionary for its time. But how many of the modern problems in corporate America are caused by trying to make an outdated system fit with every single modern job?
To the U.S., 8.4 million people in the nation are working multiple jobs.
850,000 jobs. Wages went up for American workers.
Instead, they're working multiple jobs. It's called being overemployed.
And one part-time, but I need both of them to pay my bills every month, my rent and groceries, so just working all the time.
A report by the management consulting firm McKinsey & Company found that 2/3 of the average human's wealth is in the work they can do over their lifetime. Everybody has time, effort, and experience they can trade for money, and those tradable commodities are worth twice as much as all the other assets that the average person possesses. A regular 9-to-5 job has been a great way for billions of people to safely exchange a predictable amount of their time for a predictable paycheck, with predictable career advancement as they gain more experience. But this one-size-fits-all model for work doesn't fit with every job, and trying to make it work has been bad for employees and bad for companies for 3 reasons, which is causing 3 equally terrible trends in the job market. The first trend is that it makes time a worthless asset. The Ford Motor Company was one of the first businesses in America to adopt the 9-to-5 40-hour work week. Henry Ford did this to make his company the most attractive place for auto workers to get a job. This allowed him to pull talent away from other automakers without paying his workers more. In order to compete with Ford, other automakers were forced to offer the same 40-hour work week with paid overtime. Eventually, in order to compete with the automakers, other companies were also forced to offer 9-to-5 jobs so that their best workers didn't quit and go and work on the car assembly line. These auto workers had tightly defined and repetitive tasks, so unless the workers succumbed to exhaustion, they could do a consistent amount of work for every hour they spent at their post, and every additional hour would produce the same amount of output. If you work in a modern office job, you will know that your work is nothing like this. Sometimes there is a lot to do, and sometimes there is nothing to do, but you still need to be there 8 hours a day looking busy no matter what. Back when the 40-hour week was being fought for by workers' unions, most Americans worked in manufacturing. But today, most people work in the services sector, which is more diverse than you might expect. Unless you are working on a farm or in a factory, you are a service worker, and your job could be anything from making strategic corporate decisions to making coffees. Clearly, these jobs are very different, and should have a different schedule, but most of the corporate world has tried to make the 9-to-5 fit all jobs. But this doesn't work, because no service jobs have tasks consistently delivered on a fine-tuned production line. Work comes and goes as internal and external customers make demands, and that means when people are busy and need to do more than 8 hours in a day to finish their work, they are expected to work, quote, reasonable unpaid overtime. According to an ADP Research Institute study of office professionals, unpaid overtime jumped to an average of 9.2 hours per week in 2021. More than a full extra day to keep up with employer demands. But when there is little to no work to do because a project has just been completed or sales are seasonally slow, workers are still expected to put in the 40 hours a week because that's what the business is paying them for. If you're in this kind of job, your best option is to try and find something that makes you look busy. But if you don't have something to work on, you are probably going to be given meaningless tasks just to fill the mandatory 8-hour day. If this was just another story about companies screwing over their workers with outdated business practices, it wouldn't need a video. But the 40-hour work week isn't even good for companies. According to data from the US Census Bureau, McKinsey & Company, and compiled by Statista, growth in gig work and freelance jobs have outgrown typical permanent jobs by 500% over the last decade. Gig work apps have become very popular with unskilled workers due to their low barrier to entry and flexible working arrangements. Someone with a phone and a bike can start working for a food delivery service like Uber Eats, Postmates, DoorDash, Grubhub, or all of them all at the same time in less than an hour by filling out an online form. This has been a highly appealing alternative to minimum wage jobs that still rely on the antiquated process of handing in a resume, spending weeks doing job interviews, only to still get ghosted by a fast food joint offering $7.25 an hour for an unpredictable schedule. Gig work jobs usually also pay terribly, but people get to work as much as they want, when they want, and they can work around another full-time job for extra money. Even with all of the problems of gig work, you can see why it has become so popular. The popularity of freelancing and private contracting has also exploded. This is more popular among skilled workers who can sell their services to businesses just like an employee, but with no ongoing agreement. They are only paid when there is work to be done. Private contracts are usually an agreed-upon price for an agreed-upon outcome, like $10,000 to build a company website, but they can also be billed hourly for roles like security, administrative assistants, or on-demand workers. According to a report by the management consulting firm Oliver Wyman, healthcare workers have been one of the fastest-growing groups of workers ditching typical permanent roles in favor of working as private contractors. On-call nurses, doctors, and hospital support staff already work unpredictable hours, so they don't sacrifice much by working as contractors instead of a direct employee. According to the report, some nurses have elected to work in the temporary staffing market so they can take on fewer hours, as mental health has become a top priority for workers in the industry. Private contractors in all industries are usually paid more for their time than permanent employees because the business only pays for the hours of services they actually need, which means most of the time their total out-of-pocket will be lower. With mass layoffs dominating the news cycle, people are also finding out the hard way that if they work in an at-will employment state, their 9-to-5 doesn't give them much security anyway. So, workers at all skill levels are seeing they can make more, and businesses are realizing they can cut down on expenses by doing away with the rigid 9-to-5 workday, which is the second reason it's slowly becoming a relic of corporate history. But the death of the 9-to-5 is not going to be a good deal for everybody. Unfortunately for now, businesses are going to be the biggest winners out of this shift, even if they have to pay their contractors and gig workers slightly more per hour. The first loss is benefits. If you work as a private contractor, you are becoming your own boss, which means that even though you are making more money, there is overhead that you become responsible for. Benefits like paid time off, training, retirement plans, accounting, and health insurance are going to come out of your pocket. Health insurance through a regular employer is normally far more affordable than private options. For gig workers, this can be especially tough, because health insurance premiums for people who ride motorized scooters through late-night traffic to deliver food to people's homes is simply unaffordable on the income of a delivery driver. Even if you are doing highly skilled contracting, if you don't manage these expenses carefully, you will end up with less in your pocket than if you just stuck with a regular permanent position. And your loss is their gain. According to a survey conducted by Forbes, small and medium enterprises were hiring more contract workers because it simplified their accounting and reduced the ever-increasing expenses of human resource management. It's not just small companies either. According to CNBC, contract workers have outnumbered direct employees at Google and other large tech companies since 2018, and the ratio became even more skewed during COVID. Google already has large human resources and accounting departments, so they are pursuing contract work for two other reasons. The first is that the most talented engineers have realized that they can make more money working off one-off projects for lots of companies than they could by being a full-time employee with just one company. The demand for talent during the good times meant that these companies just had to pay what these top engineers were asking. Some highly specialized engineers could bill up to $10,000 an hour for their work to these companies. Even for a company as rich as Google, it was better to pay them only for the hours. They really needed them, instead of paying them millions of dollars a year as a permanent salary for the odd project where their skills would be needed. The second reason is that during bad times, like right now, getting rid of contractors doesn't count as layoffs, so companies can easily cut expenses without technically laying off any staff. Big layoffs signal to investors and other employees that the business is in a bad shape, and that they would be better off investing their money or building a career somewhere else. There are three groups that are really going to benefit from the death of the 9-to-5. But their gain is all at the expense of one big group that statistically you are a part of: the regular workers. Entry-level workers who can get gig work are not paid well, but they weren't paid well in minimum wage jobs either. They have just gained some flexibility to work when they want. High-skilled workers who can move to contract roles can make a lot of money by working for the highest bidding company. They only lost the idea of job security that never really existed for them anyway. Companies are also taking full advantage of the death of the 9-to-5 by cutting down on their biggest expense center. The losers are regular workers right in the middle who are in roles that can't be gigified but aren't in demand enough to be contracted out. The fixed expenses of operating as a contractor, health insurance, business licensing, accounting, and everything else means it's only worth it for people earning well over the average wage. If you are earning $60,000 as a permanent employee, you would have to charge $80,000 a year as a contractor to break even. And not many businesses are going to pay that $20,000 premium for a standard job. New regulations intended to protect contractors and workers are another problem. If a contractor files for unemployment after their job is completed with a company, they can file an SS-8 form with the IRS, which can trigger an audit to determine if that contractor and other contractors working for the company meet the requirements to be counted as a permanent employee. If they do, then the company has to cover their unemployment benefits and has to provide other benefits to every other contractor in the business as well. Businesses don't want to take that risk, so they use staffing agencies to handle all the compliance for them. According to data from the American Staffing Association, most contractors now work through middleman staffing companies. For contractors working through these middlemen, it can combine all of the problems of permanent employment with none of the benefits of being a private contractor. And that's the third reason why the 9-to-5 is going extinct. It lets companies pull some creative business maneuvers. Stop me if you've heard this one before. An entry-level job paying $8 an hour with no benefits at an unremarkable company. Oh, and they want you to have at least 3 years experience in a similar role and preferably a master's degree. Why the f*** are entry-level jobs not entry-level anymore?
The latest jobs report found widespread hiring.
One man's quest to find a job is raising questions about the labor shortage right now. He says he applied to more than 60 entry-level positions.
Particularly strong in hospitality, leisure, and healthcare.
We have created more jobs in 2 years than any presidential term.
Searching for a job is a difficult and time-consuming task. Most Americans do not have enough savings to survive for more than 2 weeks without going into debt, which means it is also stressful. No matter how efficient the hiring process is made, you are never going to have fun looking for a job, and nothing can change that. But the corporate world has introduced a lot of obstacles that make the job of finding a job as painful as possible. Filling out online forms for information already on your resume, going through multiple rounds of interviews, and getting ghosted by hiring managers for hundreds of positions is enough to drive anybody mad.
Responded to me. 4 of those went on to a phone call after an email exchange, and then 1 of those turned into an interview. 0 of them turned into a job that was actually desperate for help.
It's also simply bad business. Attracting the right talent is vital for business success. If businesses make their application process too difficult, they are going to filter out everybody but the most desperate candidates, which are rarely the best candidates. Companies that ask for multiple years of experience from applicants applying for entry-level jobs also expose themselves to a similar risk. It might sound advantageous for the business to get an employee with years of experience that they can pay like a fresh graduate, but company management frequently overlooks the reason that these applicants are looking for entry-level jobs in a field they have been working in for years, and it's that they are not that good at their job and they need to keep moving companies before their poor performance catches up with them. A recent study conducted by Portland State University and published by the Harvard Business Review found that overqualified candidates did not outperform the control group, and that paying significantly under market rates for talent will cost most businesses more in other areas. Bloated hiring processes are also expensive. Sponsored job postings on sites like Indeed, LinkedIn, and Glassdoor can cost hundreds of dollars per day, easily more than the successful applicant will be paid once they are on board and working. Multiple rounds of interviews also take paid hours from HR, hiring managers, and third-party recruiters. Recruiters work on a commission basis for successfully placed candidates. But if a company makes candidates go through multiple rounds of interviews, the recruiters can ask for a higher fee, or they will be incentivized to send their best recruits to companies that have a simple hiring process so they can get paid quickly and reliably. It's bad business, and good company managers know it, but there are 3 reasons why they still do it anyway. The first reason is that it's become too easy to apply for a job. Indeed has 60 million monthly users, and LinkedIn has over 200 million. Online job boards make it easy for applicants to apply for hundreds of jobs every day based on convenient filters that let them search results by industry, seniority, experience, and salary range. Companies can get several thousand applications for a single position, because the optimal job search strategy has become spamming your resume into as many positions that vaguely fit the description of the job you are looking for. Companies have attempted to adapt to this by having landing pages where users can fill in their details into the company's own database by manually completing an online form. These forms typically ask for information that should be included on any good resume, but it enters it in a way that can be read by a computer instead of being read by a hiring manager, saving them the time of manually going through thousands of applications by hand to find the attributes they are looking for in a candidate. The backend of these forms will enable the hiring manager to search through the candidates by a similar set of filters that the candidates themselves use to find the job posting, evening the arms race between the volume of applications and the people that check those applications.
You're quantifying human behavior, human expressions, human voices, turning that into data.
We're now using artificial intelligence to help companies find the very best talent.
Some companies have started using application tracking systems, or ATS, which use AI to scrape resumes for keywords to populate databases that can be filtered in the same way without requiring candidates to fill in a data entry form themselves.
And most likely you were being analyzed by an algorithm. How does that make you feel?
I feel like that would blindside me entirely.
This practice has become so common that there are now AI tools like Zeti, JobScan, and Rezi that check resumes against job posts and make sure that they are appealing to the AI system that check resumes before the hiring manager does. So, an AI will write a resume to satisfy another AI to stand out against thousands of other applications also written and checked by AI. Applying for a job has become easier than when you had to search the classifieds and call companies one at a time. But this means people can apply for more jobs. More applications means that the acceptance rate at each job is much lower. And the best way to deal with this low acceptance rate is to apply for more jobs, which means that applying for a job has become harder all over again. Nobody is to blame for this new paradigm. I love making fun of dumb corporate decisions on this channel, but in this case, they are just reacting to new technology that has made finding applicants easier than ever, and everybody else is reacting to the same thing. The competitive meta of job searching has shifted from a firm handshake to mass spamming resumes to get past increasingly difficult spam filters. But that's just one reason, and there are plenty of things that companies are doing which are just dumb. The second reason that companies have made it so difficult to apply for jobs is because they want to cover their ass. There are lots of reasons why a hiring manager might want to pick one job applicant over another, but not all of them are legal. And even if they don't violate any equal opportunity laws, some might be a bad look for the company. By listing lots of unreasonable job requirements, the company increases the likelihood that no applicant will tick every box, which means they can hire whomever they want and cover themselves by saying all of the other candidates were missing one or more of the role's prerequisites. It's rare that companies get much pushback over rejecting an external candidate. Most people have just become accustomed to never hearing back from a majority of jobs they apply for. If you have ever applied for a job recently, you will know that no response is the new rejection letter.
First time.
If companies do respond, they try to keep it as generic as possible, so that they do not expose themselves to any potential unfair hiring practice lawsuits, which makes the long list of job requirements redundant. Where these do help companies, though, is in rejecting internal hires. According to a study by Cornell University, internal hires outperformed outside hires, but only because they are more familiar with the business from day one, requiring less training to get into a new role, and because they were more likely to stay in a job longer than the outside hire. A similar study by McKinsey Consulting found that a strong culture of internal promotions helped with staff retention and encouraged staff to work harder to qualify because they could see it paying off for them.
The pandemic, a lot of companies are not flush financially, so they can't afford to hire a new person.
Internal promotions are effective, but they are also more difficult than outside hires. If you get promoted or moved around within your company, then someone else needs to be hired to fill your role. And if someone gets promoted to fill your role, then HR has to fill 3 positions instead of just 1, which is expensive, difficult, and triples the chance that someone won't be able to perform their new job. People hired internally also don't have probationary periods, so if they do underperform in their new role, they are harder to let go. Internal hires have advantages, but external hires are easier and present less risk. If a company has no strong internal candidates for a new role, but it doesn't want to lose the benefits that come from occasionally promoting people from within, then the most effective strategy for them is to increase the job requirements so they can tell their existing staff that, unfortunately, they don't qualify based on the job's criteria. I know I say it a lot, but this is another reason why the best thing you can do in your career in your early years is to consistently apply for new jobs that are better than the one you currently have. Workers that change their jobs every 2 years earn on average 50% more than their colleagues who show loyalty to a company. Sticking around might get you a promotion, but there's no way to know how long it will take for other people to move out of their positions. Having experience at different companies is also more valuable to new employers than long-term tenure at a single employer. When employers ask for 3 years experience, they are often satisfied with candidates that talk about dealing with similar challenges in different industries. So you should apply anyway and just have some kind of experience to talk about, even if it's not doing the same job or even a job at all. And that's the third reason why employers make job requirements that are so out of touch with the job they are offering. They want to see how applicants deal with the challenge. There is an old saying in business that even if you are not in sales, you are in sales. Most people do not have jobs that require cold calling a list of leads to generate revenue. but those soft skills are still important in every job. Dealing with difficult customers, difficult coworkers, being able to present a strong argument, or simply showing empathy for a client's needs are all skills that could be demonstrated by an applicant when they are questioned about a shortcoming of their qualifications against the job requirements. If you're in a job interview and can provide a strong response to a question like this that eases the interviewer's concerns without disregarding them, you will probably end up doing better than someone who didn't even have that experience gap. If you can deal with an interviewer's concerns, then you have clearly demonstrated that you can deal with the other challenges as they are presented to you, a skill that is worth more than anything you can write down on a resume.